The honorable speaker, and he requested and he directed me rather to that I should be here and speak to all of you. And I took this opportunity to speak to you, to Mr. Rangan Datta, Yogesh Gupta ji. Thank you, and thank you all of you for being here this morning to listen to me. The topic, I'm told, is igniting minds and unleashing innovation in India. On the 8th of July 2021, I was given the privilege and the honor to serve in Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji's team. After having spent over 15 years in politics, and before that I was an entrepreneur. The responsibilities tasked given to me on the 8th of July, information technology on the other hand. And in the government we refer to these two programs or these two ministries as Skill India and Digital India. They have one common thread, and I think that is material to the audience that VisionIAS is speaking to, and to most of you who are present and listening to us, which is that they address the youth of India, and both these ministries are part of our government's efforts to creating new opportunities for the youth of India. I am asked very often to speak to young Indians, and I make it my work to engage with them, whether they are students at an ITI or students in a skilling center or startups and entrepreneurs in Bengaluru, Hyderabad, Tamil Nadu, as the case may be. And one thing is very clear about this new India that Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji has built or is building. The energy, the passion, the optimism about the future that a young Indian feels deeply, he or she, regardless of whether he or she is in Meerut, Ghaziabad, Lucknow, Kohima, Srinagar, Bhubaneswar, Maharashtra, Gujarat, south of India, is a tremendously important aspect of this new India, this energy, this optimism. और ये optimism बना कैसे है? ये क्यों ऐसा optimism बना कैसे है और क्यों बन रहा है? और क्यों बना? मैं 30 साल से I've been a mix of an entrepreneur. I've been in politics for 15 out of those 32 odd years. And when I started my journey as a young student many years ago, the narrative about India, and for the most part of the last 30 years, the narrative of India was we were a large democracy, but in many ways we are a dysfunctional democracy, क्योंकि हमारा size जो है और हमारा span and width of this country is so large कि late 80s में एक प्रधानमंत्री जी ने कहा भी था कि 100 रुपए जो निकलते हैं दिल्ली से उसका केवल 10 या 15 रुपए पहुंचता है बेनिफिशियरी के पास। ये एक narrative had stuck to India, that we are a big democracy, a vibrant democracy, a loud democracy, a noisy democracy, but we are a dysfunctional democracy, a leaky democracy. That is one. The second was that we are a country that is billion people, 900 million people, as the case was some decades ago. We will always remain poor, because the tax GDP ratios were low, tax compliances were low, the revenues to the government were always going to be low, and therefore we would always be, in a sense, consigned to these 2, 3, 4% types of rates of growth for years and decades. This is the second narrative. And the third narrative was government, politicians not responsive, people will suffer, people will have problems. but due to the distance, due to the many layers of bureaucracy and politics, the response or the responsiveness of government was always seen to be very, very poor. So that was the third broad narrative. And the fourth narrative was that the big grew bigger, that opportunities in India were limited to a few people, few families, few groups, and for the large part, most Indian youth had to go through the drudgery of the same old occupations and opportunities that their fathers or grandfathers had got. So these were mota for many years, many decades. This was the narrative of India. If you today look back at that narrative and compare ourselves to where we are today in 2022, this narrative of being a leaky, dysfunctional democracy has been turned on its head. Today, when 100 rupees is sent from the government of India to a beneficiary, whether the beneficiary is in Jharkhand or in the Northeast or in Jammu and Kashmir or any part of India, that 100 rupees reaches that beneficiary's account without leakage, without corruption. It is the single most important change in the narrative about the democracy in India, that our democracy is a functioning democracy, is a responsive democracy. Today, look at 2022 and you look at tax collections and revenue collections to the government of India. For the first time, I believe, in the history of India, as an independent nation, and we are celebrating 75 years of our country as an independent nation, tax collections have exceeded targets by almost 25%. ये कभी नहीं हुआ है हमारे देश में. 22 lakh crores was the target, 27 lakh crores was the actual. So this myth, this narrative that India is destined to always be a poor country because tax collections, government revenues will always remain tepid in terms of growth, is also turned on its head. So therefore, we are not destined like we were for decades for 2%, 3% growth. We can, with absolute optimism, look forward to a decade of 10% plus growth. How is all this being possible? Now, even the last part, let me talk about opportunity. पहले ये होता था कि 2010 में when I was a parliamentarian and I raised in parliament that 97% of the banking system's network, 97%, was lent to 9 families in India. That type of concentration of risk, that type of concentration of opportunity clearly left everybody else out of the availability of credit and capital. And आज आप देखिए यूनिकॉर्न बन रहे हैं जो फर्स्ट जनरेशन बिजनेसमैन, people with absolutely no exposure or connection or contacts to the banking system are raising capital and are creating opportunities, prosperities and billion-dollar companies all on their own merit, all on their own capability. ये जो एक बदलाव हुआ है structural at a very deep structural level is presenting an unprecedented set of opportunities and a runway of opportunities for prosperity to today's young generation. और हमने किया क्या इस opportunity को reality में convert करने के लिए? और जैसे आप आज बात कर रहे हैं about opportunities in the administration. The government has laid out a vision from 2014 on digitizing our economy and skilling our youth as the two principal poles on which the future opportunities for the youth of India can be realized. 2014 में जब प्रधानमंत्री जी ने ये डिजिटल इंडिया प्रोग्राम का उन्होंने लॉन्च किया था, उन्होंने इसका 3 ब्रॉड ऑब्जेक्टिव्स बताए थे. एक था कि टेक्नोलॉजी से देश के हर नागरिक के लाइफ में बदलाव आए। That means technology must transform the lives of Indian citizens. Technology must transform governance and democracy. एक तो वो। दूसरा उनका ये कहना था कि टेक्नोलॉजी से हम ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा अपॉर्चुनिटीज क्रिएट करें फॉर एंटरप्रेन्योरशिप, फॉर जॉब्स, बाय एक्सपैंडिंग द डिजिटल इकोनॉमी। और तीसरा उनका ये बड़ा साफ फोकस था 2014 में कि हम दुनिया के ये जो लीडिंग कंट्रीज हैं उनके साथ मिलकर हम भी टेक्नोलॉजी के लीडरशिप दुनिया को दिखाएं। तो उसका आप इफ यू टेक दैट विजन ऑफ द ऑनरेबल प्राइम मिनिस्टर एंड यू लुक एट द लास्ट 2 years ऑफ कोविड, और ये जो कोविड के दौरान हमने जो रेजिलियंस दिखाया है, हमने हमारे देश ने जो रिस्पॉन्स किया है हेल्थ केयर में, इकोनॉमी में, वैक्सीनेशन में, छोटे बिजनेसेस में गरीबों को खाना पहुंचाने, फूड पहुंचाने का काम, उसका पूरा का पूरा अंडरलाइंग प्लेटफॉर्म था टेक्नोलॉजी। Therefore, the investments made in digitizing our economy, the investments made in digitizing our government came to help us during our response during COVID. Or why is this such an important milestone for us as a nation? It is an important milestone because even today, अगर आप पेपर देखोगे या सोशल मीडिया में जाओगे या डिजिटल मीडिया में देखोगे, आज भी चाइना इज अंडर लॉकडाउन, आज भी countries like USA are going through chaos because of their economic impact of their stimulus package. We are the one country that has come out of COVID, highest growth, the highest growing economy in the world, highest FDI in the world, and most importantly creating unicorns at a faster rate than any other country in the world. So the decisions taken by our Honorable Prime Minister way back in 2014 have not only helped the nation, but have also been a very significant element of creating these new opportunities in the post-COVID era. Post-COVID era में दुनिया का जो एक एस्पेक्ट आई वांट टू शेयर विद यू इज द रैपिड एक्सेलरेटेड डिजिटाइजेशन ऑफ द वर्ल्ड्स इकोनॉमीज, द वर्ल्ड्स गवर्नमेंट्स, द वर्ल्ड्स एंटरप्राइजेस एंड द वर्ल्ड्स कंज्यूमर्स। इस डिजिटाइजेशन से सबसे बड़ा लाभ इज द लाभ टू इंडिया, एंड इंडिया इज स्लोली एंड श्योरली इमर्जिंग as the trusted global value chain partner to the world's requirements of digital products and services. और इसके लिए हम इंडिया में स्किल इंडिया के द्वारा we will make India the skill hub of the world where white collar to blue collar, the needs of the world and the needs of digitizing world will be met by Indian youth. I will end by saying this to all of those who are aspiring to join government and indeed aspiring to do many interesting things in the coming years. Prime Minister has characterized, our Honorable Prime Minister has characterized the next 10 years as India's decade. Recently, the CEO of Intel, Pat Gelsinger, who after meeting the Honorable Prime Minister tweeted, the next 10 years or up to next 20 years, I see tremendous opportunity for India and Indians. This is the reality. So I would urge all of you कि ये जो बदलता हुआ देश है, बदलता हुआ दुनिया है, इसमें young Indians have a tremendous opportunity and a tremendous role to contribute and to succeed. I wish all of you the very best. I wish you the success in whatever you do, and never take your eyes off the fact that there are tremendous opportunities in front of you, and it's only your determination and your hard work that will decide how successful you are. Thank you very much.